welcome back. This is Casey and I am continuing on with an iris reading. I just finished the left eye and this will be part 2, the right eye. Okay, so just a quick recap. We do have a true brown eye and you can see that in the, let me see here. You can see that in the velvety texture. So you don't see the iris fibers or the trabecula as much. It's more of a velvet texture than the other textures that we have defined iris type through, such as cotton, linen, muslin, lace. So lace would be a more challenged physical genetic structure, and then as you get into the finer fabrics you get into the stronger genetics, and so this would be a strong iris type in the physical genetic sense. Now we do have a lot going on in this iris, so in terms of especially the stomach and bowel area. So in this area right here, we're going to be focusing on that and how it is related to different organs and systems in the body. Okay. So, I see. Let me get the right brush size. Okay. Here we go. All right, so again, we do have a pupillary, the pupillary margin is showing some signs of malabsorption or challenges with nutrient absorptions and how well we receive. And something interesting about this pupil in particular is that it's a good example of what pupil flattening looks like. So you can see in this area right here there's a bit of a flattening going on. So when you see pupil flattening, that is indicating that there is stress within the central nervous system and it is affecting the organs and the anatomy of the area outside of it. So we're going to take a look at what this area is indicating is imbalanced. You can also, according to Dr. Jensen, this could also be a sign of a natural flattening within the stomach itself in that area. So, but we're going to look and see what's going on out here because it does look like there is a little bit of inflammation and stress in the throat area. And there was in the left iris a lot going on in the thyroid, parathyroid, and tonsil area. So yeah, we have the pupillary margin indicating issues with absorption and quite possibly inflammation, or even when you see a very prominent pupillary margin, super dark, this one is not in that stage, it can indicate to the level of the level of stomach inflammation to the point where it has actually been diagnosed or recognized as gastritis, which is inflammation of the stomach lining. So this person, it doesn't look to me like she is at that point, but there's just a little bit of a challenge with nutrient absorption according to this pupillary margin. Okay, so we have these beautiful brown eyes and they are very dark. I did need to lighten the pictures a little bit. So the true brown iris, you can see there are no signs of blue. A lot of us, including myself, have believed that our eyes are true brown eyes until we look a little bit deeper and we can see signs of any signs of green or blue within the iris, especially you'll see it in the nerve rings. can indicate that you are actually experiencing lifetimes of lymphatic stagnation, and that is showing up as brown in the eye. So this person has true brown eyes with the addition of a lot of lymphatic stagnation, so they're very, very dark. All right. Okay, let's get started. So a lot going on in the digestive system. We saw the issues with the absorption, and then we have all of these radii solaris, and that is named after, it literally means sun's rays, solar rays. And so you can think of the pupil as the sun, and then the rays of the sun seen as the radii solaris. Okay, so generally, well, not generally speaking, in iridology, these absolutely indicate toxicity coming from the stomach and bowels and radiating out into the periphery of the iris. So I'm going to leave this section right here so that we can look at what might be going on in this area where there was pupil flattening. And it does look to me like there's a little bit more inflammation in this area of the stomach or the digestive system, but this is actually the small intestine. So there could be an elevated amount of stress in the small intestine related to the rest of the digestive system. Okay. Let's start towards the top of the eye, and something that actually I do want to mention, if you were watching the last video, there was one thing that I noticed when I was finished with the video, and that was that there was some inflammation going on and a little bit of stress going on in the forehead and actual eye zone, and I did see that in this eye too. And so, you know, it might not seem as important, if you will, so like forehead and eye, as compared to the rest of the organs and what's going on in the scope of the entire body. But when I see it in, so I didn't mention it, but when I see it in both eyes, then it becomes something that does seem significant to me. So this area, see this little tiny marking right here, this is the actual eye. You can see over here in the chart, that's the eye. And then we have the sort of upper jaw and facial area and forehead. Okay, so I'm going to just circle that. And then this dark, pretty dark, so chronic to degenerative radii solaris is in the pineal. And the pineal showed up somewhat in the left eye, but it was more the pituitary that was showing up more prominently. They're really close together, so the pituitary is just right in here. So you could say that, you could even say that, so this would be the pineal, and then the pituitary would be right behind it. And that definitely could be showing up as this little dark spot and inflammation in this area. So pituitary and pineal, and both of those are, you know, in a physical sense, the pituitary is responsible for secreting sort of master hormones, or hormones that direct other endocrine glands to secrete their own hormones. And then the pineal gland, in a physical sense, is related. I mean, the pineal gland, if you research it from a medical perspective, they're still saying, you know, it's a bit of a mystery. All they can really attribute to the pineal gland is melatonin. So there could be issues with insomnia or sleeplessness when you have something coming up in the pineal gland. In a more spiritual sense, both of those are, so the pineal would be the third eye center, and then, which is our psychic vision, and then the pituitary would be related to the crown chakra, which is our connection to source, and also a very elevated center of consciousness. Okay, and just like in the left iris, we will see how the other organs and glands are being affected by the pituitary gland itself. All right, and a little bit, this would be the vitality center right here, and that came up in the left eye, but a little bit of a diamond sort of shaped crypt or lacuna in that area. So for those of you following for educational purposes, the lacuna are more of the larger lesions. They can be open-ended and they can also be closed off, and they vary in terms of what level of function they're at. So they could be acute, chronic, or even degenerative. And then the crypts are usually smaller. A lot of times they're sort of a diamond shaped, and they're usually very dark inside. So it's indicating just this very small area of focus. And it, generally speaking, would be more into the chronic and degenerative. So I would say this would be somewhat of a crypt right in here, and that would be, again, the vitality center. Not really something that I'm even going to mark up, just because it's not in perspective or relation with the rest of the iris. It's not something I would say is super significant, but just, again, it came up in the other iris, so I wanted to mention it. And then the transverse colon is it's part of the large intestines, and it is the part of the colon that goes across the top of the digestive system. So here you can see it in this area. This is a transverse colon, and there's a little bit going on in the area that would relate to, again, the back of the head, the medulla, and let's see if we can see what brain centers might be related. So it's interesting. This area right here is, as you can see, related to the transverse colon, and this is the brain center known as the erogenous zone. So it has a lot to do with our sexuality and things of that nature. And again, I have a description of all of the brain centers on my website, but yeah, it is the erogenous zones of the brain, and it also has to do with dreams. Okay, and it's not, again, I'm not even really going to highlight it. It's just, it somewhat caught my eye, but what I'm really interested in are these little lacuna right in here, right in here. So that area is the mastoid. So that mastoid bone, and the mastoid process is the bone that you'll feel behind the ear. And then the medulla is going to be close to that, right in this area in here. So again, back of the head, and looking like this is originating from the transverse colon. So we have mastoid, medulla, and then we have the sex zone right there. And so with the sex zone, I don't want to just leave you hanging with that. It can be related to just the health of your sexuality. So And again, read up on it on my website if you're interested in that. So, and then this little section right here is the mastoid. So when you have the mastoid and the medulla coming up, and this area came up in the left eye as well, you're looking at the possibility of headaches and dizziness when you do detox. The medulla itself, as a brain zone, is a vital brain zone. It contains the respiratory, cardiac, and vasomotor centers. So it controls expiration, circulation, heart activity, and oxidation of the blood, along with sensory motor functions. It is absolutely related to the heart area. So when you see that there's something going on in the medulla, you will cross-reference that with the heart area. And we just saw that in the left eye. There was a minor weakness in that heart area, nothing that needs to manifest into anything significant in this lifetime for this person. And it looks like a little bit of inflammation in the neck area, similar to the left side. So it could be something acute or subacute in the neck. And when you're in the acute stages, you're going to be feeling it more. So she could have some chronic pain going on in that area. All right, and then we're getting into the lungs. A little bit of inflammation, but nothing major is catching my eye. We do see the nerve rings in this iris as well. We saw pretty much a very similar pattern of nerve rings in the left iris. So again, nerve rings are indicating some tension in the nervous system. Okay, and then the next thing that I'm seeing as fairly significant is this area right in here, and this is the gallbladder with the liver just below that. And because it's a pretty common theme in the true brown iris to have this excellent constitution and be able to really kind of power through life, if you will, not usually feeling a lot of symptoms in the acute sense, but the liver and the gallbladder a lot of times are showing up in the true brown iris. And along with that, a lot of times in the true brown iris, you will, just like other constitutions that are really strong physically, you will go through life and not notice or be hindered by minor symptoms. You'll just sort of push through, and then you will have a somewhat unexpected imbalance showing up as a sickness or dis-ease of some sort. So that's why I wanted to look at the liver gallbladder in this eye, because it is related to the liver gallbladder is connected to the true brown iris type. So this area right in here, and again we're seeing how all of this is affected by the stomach and the bowels. And yeah, so this would be the gallbladder right in here, and then the liver. And you can see that on this chart right here. The liver looks pretty clean. It's mainly the gallbladder, but if you see these little, I would call these crypts in the gallbladder, then chances are you're dealing with some level of discomfort or low function in the liver itself. But so I'm going to outline where the liver is, but you can see that there's no lacuna or anything like that. So there's nothing that I can see that was genetically passed through the liver. It's just something that could definitely be addressed. I do think that I really, really like Dr. Morse's liver gallbladder formula. I prefer to take that in the capsules. I don't even know if he has it in the tincture form. But when you're dealing with the digestive system, there's just a few things that I really just feel like capsules address better because it's the actual physical herb itself. And then there's other things that are better treated with the tinctures. And so I like the tinctures for the endocrine system, anything with the brain and the nerves. Okay, so gallbladder, definitely, possibly liver, just because the two of them are so connected. And what else are we seeing? So this is significant to me. This is the ovary showing up in both irises. And actually, it looks like a genetic pass in the ovary of each eye. And again, I would recommend the female reproductive formula, and I would recommend that in tincture form. Okay, and then just above that is the pancreas. So just because of what we're seeing in the entire digestive system, I wouldn't be surprised if the pancreas has a little bit of maybe just in the acute stages of inflammation or lymphatic stagnation. So there could be something going on with the pancreas, but when you address when you address the digestive system, especially if you get the liver gallbladder capsules, that will also be addressing the pancreas. But when you have a pancreas that is challenged, you're going to have further compromise or challenge in the digestive system, and you likely will have more acidity because the pancreas is the organ that secretes the alkalizing enzymes into that last little part, or the last part of the stomach and the first part of the large intestine, or the small intestine, excuse me, so that it cools down the contents of the highly acidic contents of the stomach as they're passed into the small intestine. Okay, and this right here is the appendix. So I'm not sure if this was removed. If it was not removed, it's in a chronic state, again, contributing to the imbalance in the overall digestive system. The appendix is a crucial organ. It's part of the lymphatic system, and it is part of the lymphatic system that is related to the digestive system. So either it was in a chronic state and it was removed, or it is in a chronic state. So appendix. This area is the hip area, and then this area is the thyny foot. The thyny foot and the hip look fairly chronic to me. And the thyny foot, it would be more like the thigh, maybe into the knee, but it's about midway up that line. Thyny foot is always going to be your 6 o'clock line if you're drawing down from the center of the pupil. So hip, and I believe the hip came up in the left iris as well. I think the thyny foot did as well, but not as strongly as it's coming up in the right. So like right there is showing up most prominently to me, and then just like this is the line, the entire line of the thyny foot. And again, we have very small markings in the periphery of the iris, which is getting into the lymphatic and even skin zones, which is interesting. So whatever's happening in this area could be affecting the body in that area in the skin. Okay, let me see. And this actually on my software, my computer software, is showing up as peritoneum. So that is the lining of the entire abdominal cavity. So again, back to the digestive system. This little tiny marking right here is the pelvis. And then we have these nerve rings. And these nerve rings are somewhat concentrated in that thigh, knee, foot area. Okay, I'm going to erase those because I want to be able to see what's going on in the kidney. So again, this kidney does not look bad. It looks like it could have some acute inflammation, definitely some lymphatic stagnation. There's a little marking right there in that kidney area. And then the nerve ring that sort of begins is significant to that kidney area. But there isn't a genetic pass in the form of a lacuna or crypt necessarily, except for, with the exception of this very small marking right here. But when you have a skin ring here and you have a lot of lymphatic congestion, you can see that throughout the eye. You've got to, I don't want to say assume, but maybe so, that the kidneys are not filtering. So even though there's not a genetic weakness that I'm seeing in the kidney and adrenal area, it's still going to be a primary focus in the detox journey. Okay. So yeah, a lot in the hip and thigh, knee, foot, especially on the right side. All right, this next prominent lacuna or crypt is related to the bladder as well as the uterus is right. So the uterus is right in here, and then the bladder is right in here. So this would be the uterus and the bladder. And because so many of the female reproductive organs have been coming up, again, I would recommend the female reproductive formula. Okay. A little bit going on in the back. That showed up on the left side as well, but I believe the right side, it doesn't look quite as chronic, although there's definitely some inflammation, and it could even be in the subacute to chronic level in that back area. I'm guessing there is some pain in the back. Okay, this little area is the scapula. So we're back to that area where we saw the pupil flattening, and I wanted to see what was going on over here. We do have nerve rings showing up. So nerve rings, when you're looking at nerve rings, you want to be looking at how deep they are, what color they are. These are more whitish, so they would be in the acute stages. And then you want to be looking at where they stop and start. I've seen a lot of different nerve rings. I think I might do just an entire video on different eyes that have really sort of spectacular nerve rings that form full concentric circles. So the nerve rings in this iris are not a significant trait that I'm looking at in the iris, but they're definitely there. So again, nerve rings are the reflection of stress within the nervous system. And this nerve ring is all the way out into the skin and lymph zones. And this could very well be a nerve ring all the way on the edge, which is somewhat unusual. So definitely something going on with the skin. And we have this yellowish hue that came up in the other eye as well. Again, it could be lighting, but the fact that we have some pointers, some signs of inflammation in the iris in that medial portion, I would say that there could be indications of stress in the liver related to this yellow hue. Okay, so this is the whole entire throat. And the tonsils came up in the left iris. Let's see what it comes up in the right. So yeah, this area right here, it looks to have some acute level of inflammation. This would be the tonsil throat area, but there's not a lacuna or crypt like there was in the left eye, but there does look to be some inflammation. And then that also is the thyroid area. So in here would be the thyroid. I have mentioned this several times in several videos, but the best way to test, in my opinion, to test the thyroid is to do the basal thermometer testing. And I have a description of that on my website. Essentially, you're going to take your temperature underneath your arm before you get out of bed, and you know, your metabolism increases generally once we get up and get going. So you're testing the temperature to see if it's below average. That could indicate your thyroid is hypo functioning. And then if it's above average, you could have a hyper functioning thyroid. And when you see a skin ring, generally speaking, you're going to see the thyroid come up as well. So far we have not necessarily the adrenals so much showing up in this iris. Like I said, like the kidney looks pretty clean. It does look to have some inflammation in it. But so far we do have the adrenal did come up in the left iris. We have the pineal gland, the pituitary gland, and the pineal gland, or excuse me, the thyroid gland coming up in both irises. And then all of the female reproductive organs are making themselves known as well. And then down a little bit lower in this area would be the parathyroid. So the parathyroid actually is showing it more specifically as a weakness. And parathyroid has a lot to do with how your body utilizes calcium. Signs of a weak parathyroid are going to be sagging and just basic lack of strength in the structure of the connective tissue. So you can see that in some people's eyes, if they have sagging eyelids, if they have sagging skin, anything that is compromised in the sense of connective tissue will show up, and the parathyroid invariably is going to show up with that. So that includes prolapses, hernias, anything that you can think of where the body has lost its optimal strength of connective tissue. So parathyroid showing up in both irises as well as thyroid, but more so the parathyroid. Okay. That's all I'm seeing in this iris. And if anyone has any questions, please feel free to send me an email, put them in the comments. What I'm recommending in terms of herbs for this person would be number one, work on the digestive system while you're working on getting the kidneys filtering. But once you get the digestive system cleaned out, you'll be able to get a lot of the toxins out of your body, and you'll be able to begin healing the brain and nerve area. I would recommend, okay, so let me get back to the, like, what this person would absolutely be recommended to take in terms of herbal formulas. We'll do two different scenarios if you're on a budget, or if you have a little extra to spend. So if you're on a budget, absolutely stomach and bowels. And I would actually, for this person, recommend the GI Broom. If you had to choose between the GI Broom and the stomach and bowel formula capsules, which it's recommended to take them both, but I personally feel like you could get away with just doing the GI Broom and really work on and that would affect the cleaning of the stomach and bowels. And so you would have GI Broom and or stomach and bowels, and then you would have a formula. I recommend in capsule form. You address the lymphatic system, and I like the lymphatic one, especially if you're just starting out. There's a lot of different lymphatic formulas that Dr. Morse has created. He's a bit of an alchemist when it comes to herbal formulas. He's always adding more formulas and tweaking them, and there's, I think, I don't know, 5 or 6 different lymphatic formulas. They're all very similar in ingredients. So it's just the intention with that is to provide a little bit of variety. If someone's on a long detox journey and they end up needing to take lymphatic formulas for months and months, then you have the option of switching it up, and which makes it more effective. So lymphatic formulas are not necessarily numbered according to strength at all. They all have really similar ingredients, just like the endocrine formulas. The stomach and bowels are definitely numbered according to strength, and you can read more about that on his website. But generally speaking, they're numbered like stomach and bowel. 0 is for people who are on the opposite side of constipation. So even with diarrhea or IBS, that would sort of calm the stomach and bowels. And then you go from 0 to, I think, 5. And then, so once you start at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I'm not sure if he has a 5. But if he did, it would have a lot of Cascara sagrada in it. So the stomach and bowel formulas are really similar in terms of ingredients, except for they increase the amount of Cascara sagrada in each number. So 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5. I'm not sure. So you would vary that according to how often you're having bowel movements. Okay, so GI Broom, lymphatic formula, I would start with 1 in capsule form. I would recommend the endocrine balance tincture, and again, we're on the affordable option here. And let's see, and then a kidney bladder tincture. I would recommend a tincture. You could go either way, a tincture or a capsule in the kidney bladder. So if you had more to spend on herbal formulas, I would recommend getting the brain and nerve formula, because we do have a lot going up in the head and brain area, as well as, some nerve rings. So we have stuff going on in the nervous system, and the flattening of the pupil here also is indicating some stress in the nervous system, in the central nervous system. The nerve rings are related to the autonomic nervous system. And then, so now we're on if you have extra. So you would get all the 4 that I mentioned previously, as well as you could add brain and nerve and female reproductive tonic for sure. And then what you would do is you could also, I mean, I think you can get by with doing one endocrine formula at a time. So the most important endocrine formulas for this iris, because we did see the pituitary and pineal come up in both eyes, is I would start with pituitary. And then of course you can move through, cycle through to the thyroid herbal formula, the adrenal herbal formula, and so on. But the endocrine balance tincture itself will treat or affect all of the endocrine glands. Okay, I think that's it. And again, let me know if you have any questions. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will see you soon. Thanks for watching. Bye.